On this Friday night from London, the new king's first address to the nation. A son mourns his mother.
We owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother.
And sets the course for his own reign as hundreds greet him at Buckingham Palace. Operation London Bridge, the protocol now that the Queen has died. Plus, what happens to the monarchy now?
I think it's becoming more of the 21st century.
What difference the transition to King Charles might make?
Global National with Dawna Friesen, reporting tonight from London.
At noon, the bells tolled at Westminster Abbey and at hundreds of churches across the country. One bell each minute for an hour in honor of Queen Elizabeth II. Good evening and thanks for joining us. It was here at Westminster Abbey just behind me that the late Queen swore her coronation oath and set the course for a lifetime of devoted service. It's where she was married and where her funeral will take place. The country is in the midst of mourning and great transition. There is a new king, and thousands of people crowded the gates of Buckingham Palace today to greet King Charles III. Less than 24 hours after the death of his mother, it was an emotional moment. At one point, the crowd singing, "God Save the King." It marks both an ending and a new beginning. Later, Charles gave his first address as king.
I know that her death brings great sadness to so many of you, and I share that sense of loss beyond measure with you all. As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation.
King Charles is his mother's son, but he's his own man, and he will have to define his own version of the monarchy. It is already undergoing change. Prince William and his wife Kate were given new roles today as the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall, titles previously held by Charles and his wife Camilla. They'll also be both the Prince and Princess of Wales. Our Europe Bureau Chief Crystal Goomansingh is with me. Crystal?
Dawna, following in his mother's footsteps, King Charles III pledged a life of devotion and service. In his first televised address, it is clear that he is mourning the loss of his mother. But as monarch, it is his duty to help people here in the UK, in Canada, and around the world get through the monumental loss of their queen.
From the banks of the Thames to the stone walls of Edinburgh Castle, 96 rounds fired for a life of service lived and pledged.
She showed the world not just how to reign over a people, she showed the world how to give, how to love, and how to serve.
Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, was one of the greatest leaders the world has ever known. She was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
But while she understood the inescapable nature of duty, which sometimes must have weighed upon her heavily, she also delighted in carrying it out.
The weight of the crown now rests on King Charles, a man who started the week as the Prince of Wales.
It will no longer be possible for me to give so much of my time and energies to the charities and issues for which I care so deeply. But I know this important work will go on in the trusted hands of others.
Charles championed many causes. The environment was one that he advocated for tirelessly, and one his son, the heir to the throne, has taken up in recent years.
With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the centre ground, where vital help can be given. I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives overseas.
One expression of love and unity to another. 2,000 members of the public attended a service at St. Paul's Cathedral in memory of the Queen and in honor of the King.
That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today.
A new pledge of service and devotion and a new national anthem here in the UK, one we will hear many more times, likely tomorrow when the Accession Council formally proclaims King Charles. Dawna?
Crystal Goomansingh, thanks. This period of national mourning means major cultural, political and sporting events have been postponed in this country. In the coming days, the Queen's body will be moved from Balmoral to Buckingham Palace before 4 days of lying in state at Westminster Hall. The date of her funeral at Westminster Abbey behind me hasn't been announced, but it's expected to be either Saturday or Monday. It's clear people want to pay their respects to the late Queen and to the new King. Redmond Shannon is outside Buckingham Palace tonight. Redmond?
Hello, Dawna. Well, what a day it has been here. Earlier today, the new King Charles III, and the Queen Consort Camilla arrived here at the gates of Buckingham Palace. Hundreds of people were here to wish them well. Many of them got more than just a good wish. They got to shake hands with the new monarch. He went along the line for quite a long period to speak to people. One woman even kissed his hand. Some people, you could see, got visibly emotional during this historic day, and some people broke out into God Save the King when he was there. Thereafter, we saw the brand new King and Queen take a look at the flowers outside Buckingham Palace, and then, side by side, made their way through the front gates of Buckingham Palace. On the first full day of the new era of Charles III, this was the place so many people felt they just had to be. Among them, 3 generations of the Dando family, mourning what they describe as a personal loss.
If anybody dies in our family, then we always lay a single rose on their coffin. We can't do that, so we come to lay it at the palace gates. She's been our backbone, really, of the country, and we just thought we'd come up and do our best.
The Queen's played a huge part in our lives, particularly my parents have always been huge royalists, so we've been brought up to feel the same. So yes, it's a big loss for us. She's always been there.
Visitors from across the UK and all walks of life bringing offerings from the heart.
These flowers are a Queen Elizabeth rose, and I grew them in my garden, and I picked some and I wanted to bring them up here. Rosa, Queen Elizabeth, grown in my garden from Rainham in Kent, the Garden of England. A beautiful rose for a beautiful woman, our Queen.
We met Helena, who told us she'd escaped the war in Ukraine this spring for safety here.
I know a lot about Queen because for me she great woman.
Welcoming Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Windsor in March, the Queen's subtle choice of blue and yellow flowers carried larger meaning for Helena.
I think she supported Ukrainians. Yeah, we feel it. I think every day, every Ukrainians feel it, that Britons supported Ukrainians.
Dawna, just as important as the things that have been happening, of course, over the last few days and coming days, are the things that are not happening. The significance of that. Many cultural and sporting events have been postponed or cancelled. We've had music awards and music concert cancelled. Stores have closed today. London Zoo, of which the Queen is a patron, closed today. And over the weekend, there will be no Premier League games. You certainly know it is a big deal in this country when the Brits cancel their soccer games. Dawna?
That's for sure. Redmond Shannon outside Buckingham Palace, thanks. The code name for the Queen's funeral plans is Operation London Bridge, and it sets out strict protocols to be followed both in the UK and in Commonwealth countries, including Canada. Eric Sorensen explains.
By the time members of the royal family flew to Scotland and Balmoral Castle, a meticulous operation had been touched off.
The Queen is under medical supervision.
The BBC's most senior journalists came on the air, dressed in black, even reporters in the field, fully expecting what was to come.
Reporting the death of Her Majesty, the Queen.
Clockwork protocols that had been rehearsed for years are now underway. The Queen's body is to remain in Scotland till Tuesday, then will be brought by royal train to London, slowly, so thousands can pay homage along the way. The Queen will lie in state at Westminster Hall. And in the same august setting where her coronation took place, at Westminster Abbey, the Queen's funeral will happen almost 70 years later.
There will be an amazing amount of pomp and ceremony and ritual that has to be followed.
Tod von Queen Elizabeth.
It is momentous in almost every country in the world.
La muerte de la reina Isabel.
The UK must now prepare to receive scores of world leaders and with unprecedented security. In Canada, long-planned tributes are now also in motion. The beginning of a 10-day period of mourning, the statements by the Prime Minister and the Governor-General, flags at half-mast, the book of condolences for the public. In 10 days, a national ceremony is being planned, starting with a memorial parade including armed forces and the RCMP, a gun salute, as in London, 1 round for each year of the Queen's life, an aerial flypast over Parliament Hill, and a national commemorative ceremony at Ottawa's Christ Church Cathedral with dignitaries on the same day as the funeral at Westminster. Here and across the Commonwealth, gestures of public support ensure continuity for the Crown as much as for the new King himself.
The Queen is dead, long live the King. And that kind of sums it up, that there's no interruption. The function continues unimpeded with the transition to a new reign.
The transition will be a long one. Official ceremonies notwithstanding, it will take time to adjust to life without Queen Elizabeth. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
He spent his whole life waiting for this moment. Coming up, the significance of Charles being in charge. We're back from London in a moment. The Queen's death is a lot to process for some people. It marks a huge change for the royal family and the world. With me now is Margaret MacMillan. She's a Canadian historian and emeritus professor of history at Oxford University. Margaret, this moment we're in feels like a big transition. I've heard some people say it adds to the uncertainty in the world. But does the death of a monarch really mean as much today as it did in the past?
I think it does, perhaps for different reasons. I think there was probably more reverence for the monarch or the person of the monarch in the past. But I think we still see the monarchy as something which adds a sort of stability, it shows a sort of continuity. It is an institution, particularly the British monarchy, I think, which is above divisions of society, so it represents society as a whole. And I think we still value it for that reason. We perhaps aren't as reverential as we once were. I mean, when I was a child, we had to stand up whenever the national anthem was played, and in those days it was the British national anthem, not the Canadian national anthem. And some of that's gone, but I think we still value the monarchy for its symbolism and its importance as this thing that is above the divisions in society.
And of course, she was queen longer than most people were alive. Have been alive. What do you think the impact on Canada will be? Does the transition to King Charles make a difference?
It will make a difference because he is a different sort of person, but he's spent a lot of time in Canada. He comes here a lot. He's come with his wife. Some of his children went to school here, and so he has a number of links with this country. And I don't get any sense that there's a feeling in Canada that we need to get rid of the monarchy. Most people see it as rather a nice symbol that Canada is somehow different from the United States, and I think that's important to us.
You know, you said that we're less reverential now of the monarchy than in the past, but do you think it will be the same now that Queen Elizabeth is dead?
It will stay the same, I think, in some essentials, but I think it's already clear that King Charles III, as he now is, and the heir to the throne, Prince William's now the Prince of Wales, will have different views on what the monarchy should be like. I mean, they've already been more open in the way they live. Prince William is involved in a number of institutions for young people, a number of causes for young people. He and his wife, Catherine, have a very different style from the Queen and Prince Philip. And so the monarchy is adapting and changing, and I think it's becoming more of the 21st century as it adapted and changed in the past.
All right, Margaret MacMillan, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
This is Pond Inlet on northern Baffin Island in Nunavut. Even there, the flag flies at half-mast to mark the Queen's death. We're back from London in a moment. Elton John, like the rest of us, grew up with the Queen, and he, like the Queen, is not slowed down. At age 75, he is still on tour, and last night in Toronto, he paid tribute to the Queen.
and she led the country through some of our greatest and darkest moments with grace, decency, and a genuine caring warmth. I'm 75, she's been with me all my life, and I feel very sad that she won't be with me anymore. But I'm glad she's at peace, and I'm glad she's at rest, and she deserves it. She's worked bloody hard.
Elton John then sang, "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me," saying we celebrate her life tonight with music. Back in 1988, he was knighted by the Queen, and he performed at many royal events, including the funeral of Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. The last public message posted by the Queen came on Wednesday, words of condolence for the victims of the mass stabbing in Saskatchewan and their families. The Queen writing, "I would like to extend my condolences to those who have lost loved ones in the attacks in Saskatchewan." She said her thoughts and prayers were with those recovering from injuries and grieving such horrific losses. She said, "I mourn with all Canadians at this tragic time." And now we're hearing more from grieving residents of the James Smith Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. Brian Burns lost his son in Sunday's attack and his wife, Bonnie, who he calls his rock. He says he needs to stay strong for the rest of his family.
To bury your son and wife at the same time, it's tough, but I'm trying to be brave, strong for my boys, because I'm there for them. Try to be there for them, strong.
Brian Burns is calling for an inquest into why the main suspect, Miles Sanderson, who died after being taken into custody on Wednesday, was released from jail in February. The Parole Board of Canada confirms it will conduct a joint investigation into that. 10 people were killed, 18 others injured. The second suspect, Damian Sanderson, was found dead on Monday. The First Nations leaders are praising the police efforts, but do question if a local force could make a difference in preventing future tragedies. Signs tonight, a string of interest rate hikes are starting to cool the Canadian economy. The unemployment rate rose to 5.4% in August, up from a record low of 4.9% in July. The economy lost 40,000 jobs last month, mostly in education and construction, marking the third consecutive month of job losses. Health Canada has approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for children aged 6 months to 4 years. It is the second vaccine approved for that age group. Health Canada gave the green light to Moderna's shot in July. There are 3 weeks between the first and second doses, 8 weeks between the second and third. Health Canada says it approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine after what it calls a thorough and independent scientific review, and says the benefits outweigh the potential risks for kids. Flags are also flying at half-mast all over the Commonwealth. This is the Canadian warship HMCS Margaret Brooke, deployed in the Arctic. We're back from London in a moment. Welcome back to London. The Queen met a multitude of people over her 70-year reign, and we're hearing lots of funny and touching memories from those people. She traveled to Canada more than any other country. Mike Drolet looks back at some of the memorable moments from her many trips there, and here's from Canadians who were left with a lasting impression of the late monarch.
There are rules when you meet a monarch. No matter the event or occasion, Canadians planning to meet Queen Elizabeth all should have received an education on proper etiquette. So bewildered was NHL player Mike Ricci as the Queen was set to drop the ceremonial puck at a 2002 game in Vancouver. He did his best to class things up, tucking his long hair into his sweater, putting in his fake teeth, and then kept mostly quiet. All across Canada, the Queen's passing is being honored in traditional ways. Bells ringing in Banff, flowers around Queen's Park in Toronto, books of condolence for people to sign in Edmonton, Ottawa, and other cities. But those who had the privilege of meeting her say the same thing. All the formality and nervousness that came with standing before the crown melted upon meeting the person wearing it. Maggie Archibald experienced it firsthand when she and her twin sister were chosen to meet the Queen at a Buckingham Palace garden party.
At the time, she was 93 years old, and she was smiling, she was, engaged, she was witty.
And when the royal family visited Brian Bailey's Manitoba family farm in 1970, they saw a global icon who was firmly grounded.
People think of her as being regal and, wearing crowns and so on. Here she was just so ordinary.
She took pictures, went for a horseback ride, and relaxed in a lawn chair. And when the Queen returned to Manitoba in 2010, she made a beeline for Bailey's dad when she saw him at an event.
And she said, "Mr. Bailey, what a wonderful time we had on your farm." And then Prince Philip chippered in by saying, "How's the crop, Roy?"
For all her extraordinary accomplishments and her peerless longevity, for many Canadians, it's the small, simple things that won't soon be forgotten. Mike Drollet, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Friday from London. I'm Dawna Friesen. When King Charles III delivered his first address to the nation tonight, he talked about duty and service and his deep love for his mother. We leave you with his final words from that speech. Thanks for watching.
And to my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late Papa, I want simply to say this: thank you. Thank you for your love and devotion to our family and to the family of nations you have served so diligently all these years. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.